Hey everybody, welcome to today's video. I'm really happy to be here. I'm going to be talking about your symptoms of health anxiety and anxiety. Now this is a really important topic. It was for me when I was recovering from anxiety about a year and a half ago to 2 years ago. I wanted to know what was really going on internally because I was really confused and bewildered. I was really hopeless. I was in a deep hole. I didn't know how to get out of it, and just figuring out what was really going on was a huge breakthrough for me. Really kind of identifying what I was really going through with all of these sensations, these body zaps, this fogginess and all of this stuff, right? So I'm going to go through the list of sensations right now, starting with heart palpitations. You know, with anxiety and with health anxiety, heart palpitations can be really confusing. It can also be associated with heart attack, right? Like I used to think like, oh, my heart, something was wrong with my heart. I remember I woke up one night in severe panic. And my arm was numb, and my heart was just beating out of my chest like that, and I was panicking, and I really thought something serious was happening, and heart palpitations they have similar sensations to a heart attack, because we read on Google, we read and we hear like heart attack, arm gets numb, but heart attack, there's many things different from heart attack to heart palpitations and those symptoms, right? So, but especially when I was at the gym, the heart palpitations would happen when I was on the treadmill, be running, and then my heart would be like beating so much that I would have to slow down the treadmill. I would have to go at a slower pace, and then I would be so focused internally. I'd be like, well, and then my workout wouldn't be as strong, right? Because I was worried about my heart. I was worried that something is seriously wrong. But it never resulted in a heart attack. It never resulted, no matter how much panic I put towards it, no matter how much. Doctor visits, I was still fine, right? And it's all about associations, pairings that we create, that we put on the palpitations. I always associated with a palpitation with illness, with heart attack, with being weak or whatever, right? And then after I recovered and being self-mastered, now I view palpitations as healthy. My heart is working properly. The more it beats, the harder it beats, the healthier it is, because I'm working it more. It's getting stronger. It's strengthening. Every time I run, every time I work out, lift weights, whatever it may be, now I can view it differently, because it's all about the pairings that we put on the sensations that we feel. Because we view these sensations to be life-threatening when we have anxiety, when it's actually something completely opposite. And mind you, if you have something wrong, maybe like a pain or something, definitely get it checked out by your doctor. I went to my doctor, and I remember my doctor saying everything was fine. But then I remember I would constantly phone her back saying everything's not fine. I still feel awful. I still feel terrible. Why am I still feeling like this? Well, there was something else that I didn't even know at the time, right? And that was other repressed emotional issues, which I'll get into soon. So the next thing was headaches. Headaches are very common if you have anxiety, health anxiety. And like I said before, pairing. A lot of people pair headache with brain tumor, cancer, you know, and people look out for it daily. Like people look out during the day, like whether or not they're going to get a headache today, or and they end up getting a headache because a lot of people create their own symptoms, and this is huge. People create their own symptoms. I remember when I was a kid, I would get a headache and then I would get sick to my stomach, and I always associated headache with throwing up. And I remember all the time I would get a bad headache, I would throw up, and it's like I was expecting it every time. And it's when we accept it, when you look at a headache as being something like, well, I probably didn't drink enough water today. Okay, I'll drink some more water now. Or, you know, I'm overworking myself. I'm going to give myself a break today. I'm not going to stress too much today. It's probably from stress. So it's really how we associate these sensations, these symptoms, right? And accepting the headache and not being like, oh, I have a headache, and using rational thinking, being like, okay, I have a headache. I'm just going to, you know, just go with the flow. You know, I have it, and it's there. And worst comes to worst, I have to leave, or I have to, you know, pop an aspirin or something. But you know, right now I'm just going to accept it and go about my day. So it's about developing a rational self-talk. And if you're like me and saying like, well, I used to say this when I was experiencing anxiety. Well, I can't use rational self-talk, you know, because my mind is going like this. I have anxiety. I don't know how to use rational self-talk. I'm just freaking out about all my symptoms. I get it. I totally understand. But it's about sitting down with yourself and going through, like, you know, other ways of viewing something, right? Other ways of viewing heart palpitations or a headache. It's all about your perceptions of it, right? The body zaps. Now this is just something that I felt daily, and it was something debilitating. These body zaps would come, and it's not sometimes a body zap, but pain. I remember I had a severe pain in the side of my stomach where my kidneys would be, and I remember Googling it, and I remember freaking out about the info that came up, being like, oh, it's severe illness. And then I would freak out, and then it'd be the weekend and my doctor's not in, so I couldn't phone the doctor, and I would be on the ground in my room just being like, oh my God, I'm dying. So you're constantly focused on the sensations, the symptoms, and it consumes you, right? Because you're just going about your day as an anxiety sufferer, trying to just live through the day. And that's what I was doing. I was living through the day. I was just trying to survive the day so I can go to bed and then hopefully see my doctor or phone my doctor the next day and know what was going on, because, you know, I couldn't even walk down the street without having a panic attack. You know, it was just that debilitating. Because I thought I was ill, and even though I remember getting my doctor saying, oh, everything's fine, you know, there's nothing wrong with you, you don't have an illness, but then I would be like, oh, well, it's still there, this pain is still here, well, it must be something, you know, I must phone my doctor back and let her know, right, and get another checkup or whatever. A lot of people go to the hospital constantly and get themselves checked out. I remember I went there to the hospital late at night, still about the pain in my side, and the doctor said everything was fine. So that was 2 doctors that said everything was fine, and yet, you know, I was still confused, right? And the body zaps are from repressed emotional issues that we haven't dealt with yet, you know, like events in your past, traumatic events, and these get stored somewhere in your body and they cause pain. You know, a lot of people who get really bad illnesses and diseases, me being very spiritual, I believe that, you know, it's caused from repressed emotional issues. I believe that things accumulate in your body that you haven't dealt with yet, stress. You know, I believe in always doing the right thing that's good for my spirit, that will benefit it, because I believe, like, if you don't do the right thing, you know, that pain gets stored in your body, in that guilt, right? And a lot of people say karma, but I don't believe in karma. I believe in you storing that issue within oneself, and that accumulates into a body zap, that accumulates into pain, or worst case scenario, an illness down the road, right? So it's important to understand the body zaps, and that, you know, we bring it about ourselves. It's not necessarily an issue or an illness or like a disease, but it's more like an emotional issue that we haven't dealt with, right? And I always say, like, go to the doctor, get it checked out, you know. Don't ignore certain things, you know. Like if you have a serious pain or something, you know, always go to your doctor and explain it. But it's also important to know, like, once you get a result back, put it on your fridge. Make a note, or if the doctor has a note, put it on your fridge, and remind yourself daily, like, here's the note. The doctor said everything was fine. I'm not going to go back to the doctor, even though I still feel it, but perhaps it's an emotional, unresolved issue that it's stored in my body right now, and I got to figure out ways to make myself get better and resolve that, right? Which I will show you, and not in this video, but in other ways, in other videos and podcasts and stuff. But going down the list, after body zaps and pains, dizziness and depersonalization. Dizziness and depersonalization was huge. And I remember I was stocking shelves at my old job, and I was just looking on the like, I was experiencing severe depersonalization. I was walking, you know, and my head was towards the ground, and I was always like internal. And what depersonalization is, a defense mechanism of the mind and body, to protect yourself from traumatic events, right? And ways to get rid of depersonalization is to really slow down and to really walk with it. I remember just accepting it what helped me a lot. Just having pure acceptance and not caring and not giving it attention and being like, you know what, I'm just going to accept it. I'm going to lie here and just not even give any of that any emotion, and just be like, and just sit with it, right? And accepting, and it was hard for me at first, but it's just, when you had enough, you've had enough. Just sit with it, accept it. And also slowing down, not doing things too quickly. I remember my mom would always say, Brad, you got to slow down. Brad, you know, you forgot your wallet again. Brad, you forgot your phone again. And I'd be like getting mad at her, but then I'd be like getting mad at myself. And then it's just like, then I would show up at my job, or would show up somewhere and be like emotionally depleted because I forgot my phone and I was freaking out, right? So yeah, slowing down is so huge. Slowing down is so crucial to getting rid of depersonalization. We got to be more in the present moment. We got to be more, you know, with our five senses, you know, like using rational thinking and conscious thinking, you know, like, that's a nice lamp over there. I really like the color. Or I really like that woman's dress. It's a very nice color. And I remember using this technique, I remember I made a challenge for myself one day, being like, today's challenge is I'm going to point out all the positives today. And then I would go through my day being like, I like that guy's jacket. It's a really nice color. I really like that car. I really like the color of that car. I like the rims on that car, man. That's a really cool car. I really like this guy because he has a nice smile. And I would go through my day pointing out the positives, and that got me more into my external world, right? Rather than being more internal, being more consumed by these sensations that are just overwhelming me, you know? Being overwhelmed by, you know, the depersonalization and just, when, like I said before, accepting it was a really big one, right? And just getting myself more external, you know, getting myself out of the house, getting myself to, you know, out in nature was really important as well. I tried, even though like there are days, there are many days when I would be out in nature and I'd be so consumed by thoughts, just going and going and going, that I couldn't really enjoy the nature. But remember this, it's always important that you do it. No matter how painful the moment is for you, no matter, because that's cognitive emotive dissonance, which means that just because it's comfortable or uncomfortable doesn't mean it's bad. So just because you're out in nature walking, nothing's attacking you, but you feel so uncomfortable internally. Just because you feel uncomfortable doesn't mean that it's wrong. Doesn't mean that, you know, it's bad. Because we all have the ability to rewire our brain. Our brains are very neuroplastic, which means that we can rewire them, right? So if you're out in nature and you feel uncomfortable, you feel like, you know, you're going to pass out or something, whatever it may be, you know, you're experiencing these body zaps and depersonalization, it's important that you still do it. Go back the next day out in nature and do it again. Because when we put ourselves in uncomfortable situations, each time we have the ability